to Nonsense, Season 3, Episode 16, our big story. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm Stu Little.
This time we're looking at LEO satellite internet providers, defying gravity and latency, the low Earth orbit internet revolution. Up next.
That's way better than the highly pathogenic Earth orbit that I wanted to do, because that kills like 75% of us.
Like measles? You mean like measles?
Measles are fake, Jeff. You just rub vitamin A on it in a left-handed motion and you're fine. It goes away.
I don't think I need to know about your personal habits.
And that's why I can't go to the library anymore.
Oh my God. Okay.
Cured myself of measles.
Satellite internet. Here we go.
Let's do it.
Amazon's first internet satellite fleet has a new launch date, April 28th. The April 9th launch was scrubbed due to weather. The mission, called Kuiper 1, is the first of a planned 83 launches for Amazon's Project Kuiper broadband constellation, which aims to place more than 3,200 satellites into orbit to provide high-speed internet from space. The United Launch Alliance, a joint venture between private space companies Lockheed Martin and Boeing, has a 2-hour launch window in which to launch Kuiper 1. Liftoff is set for 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time from Cape Canaveral, deploying the first of 27 satellites. Actually, satellites 3 through 29, because they've already launched 2 prototype satellites for testing purposes.
What do you number them like they're like your children? What are you doing?
I don't know.
3 through 29? Do you keep the score at home?
Their life in space is so short that you very quickly, they're going to come down anyway.
That's why they named them all CJ. CJ1, CJ2, CJ3. They're all very, very quick. Here's the thing about this. This is a real bummer that this launch got pushed back, because the initial purpose of this was to provide high-speed internet to Butch in space for his Pornhub access.
At the International Space Station?
Poor guy was up there for like 7 months, 9 months, whatever. Yeah, totally. He's like, you've only got dial-up up here? What the fuck?
This got us all to thinking, well, none of the things you just talked about, got us all to thinking, what is this whole space internet constellation thing about anyway? And why do we need it, especially when we have such great undersea cables?
The last part of that is true, right? We have great undersea cables connecting damn near the entire planet, it seems.
And we keep adding new ones.
I know, which also shocks me. I'm like, how many of these do you need?
They get faster, the technology gets better, and there's just more parts of the world we want to serve.
But like, it's like when you pull like Cat 5 at your house, don't pull one cable, pull fucking 3, because you might need 2 more. They're just glass fibers, just pull them all.
And leave a string in the conduit, because when Cat 8 comes out.
Oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. They left a string from Japan to San Diego. They just call it the Japanese. Okay, load it in. I'm going to pull it through.
When Cat 8 comes out, you're going to want...
Seriously, no one understands that reference.
Faster connection.
Totally. My God, there's one long string that goes from San Diego to Japan, and then every now and again, because the Japanese are jokesters, instead of tying another fiber cable, they'll put like a fish on it, and you pull it through, and it's just like a fucking tuna. And you're like, well, thanks. This isn't exactly what I wanted. Oh, that's really funny. That no one's gonna get. Last mile is where we fall down all over the planet, especially in the U.S. more so than I would like to see.
Yes,
this is the connection from your home to some internet provider, and it's kind of nuts. I mean, you're looking at look at a place like California, where we've got 34, 35 million people. Certainly, a large number of them are in a rural area, but the vast majority are in fairly urban or suburban areas. California defines high-speed internet as 25 meg down, 3 meg up.
Which I'm so embarrassed about. Of all the states.
I know. We'll write a strongly worded letter. We'll get Gavin to bring the number up. But right now it's 25.3 is their definition of this. And even at 25.3, which I think you and I and most of our listeners would agree is a pretty low high-speed internet number, only 26% of the population in California has the choice of more than one provider for wireline technology. That is a really low number.
Zero competition. You can charge whatever you want.
Exactly. And that's problematic. Worldwide, we have pretty good internet access at large. You've got about 2 out of 3 people in the world have internet access in some form. That's great. Mm-hmm. But a big chunk of that is wireless, specifically non-directional mobile hotspots. As of a couple of years ago, 2020, 63% of rural households on the planet worldwide lacked internet access because of infrastructure requirements. 2 out of 3 households did not have a high-speed internet connection that was sort of terrestrial and durable. That's disappointing.
Yeah.
This is where satellite internet constellations could fill that gap, because they don't have a terrestrial wired or wireless solution. And if you look at the deployments on these, and this is part of why I thought it was interesting for us to talk about it today, most people know Starlink, or at least know of Starlink, and we're certainly going to talk about that.
Sure.
But there are other providers, right? The one you mentioned based on this launch, the Kuiper 1 from Amazon.
Ontario, Canada wanted to get rid of theirs because they're upset with Elon Musk. They wanted to get rid of their Starlink.
Yeah.
Kuiper's not ready for use.
Not yet.
There are other companies besides these. We can talk about other systems.
Yes.
But for now, there's nothing you can buy at Kuiper. There's nothing there yet.
And also Canada said while they want to get rid of the Starlink system, they want to wait until after the hockey playoffs are over because they might want to stream some of that.
Good.
Like, can we just wait till June? Because they got like 4 teams right now. 4 Canadian teams are in the playoffs. I'd like to see. So we were talking about satellite internet constellations, right?
Sure.
Internet via the sky, via satellite, is not a new thing. We have done this previously. We have existing systems, but they were very expensive and typically very slow. You did not have a lot of bandwidth. Most of those were at a much higher altitude, right? So they were either in a geostationary orbit or just below a geostationary orbit. So for just perspective, round numbers, geostationary Earth orbit's around 36,000 kilometers high.
Okay.
And it has to be there because you can't stay in orbit at the same spot over the planet if you're at any other altitude. You have to be at that altitude. The rate of it falling towards the Earth is the same at the rate at which it escapes the Earth.
Yes, gravity versus
speed. And not the get on or get off kind of speed, the other speed.
Yeah, but 36,000 kilometers.
Yes.
Medium Earth orbit, somewhere between 35 and 2,000 kilometers.
5,000 to 20,000 is typically what we consider that. But yeah, in between. And then LEO, the stuff we're going to talk about today, much, much closer. 500 to about 1,200 kilometers.
Medium Earth orbit means you're going to be orbiting the Earth about every day, once a day.
No, that would be geostationary orbit.
No, geostationary means you never orbit. You are always in sync with the Earth.
Oh, sorry. You're thinking about,
GPS is in medium Earth orbit typically. Secure communications are typically in medium Earth orbit.
The way we would normally say that, so you're gonna circle the globe about every 12 hours, give or take.
Kuiper is in low Earth orbit.
Yes, is in low Earth orbit.
It's zipping around the Earth about every 90 to 120 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, super fast.
So it's doing 12 to 16 orbits per day.
Yes. Yeah, something like that. So the problem with this is
7 kilometers per second.
If you put, Rain Man, we good? How many toothpicks? Are we okay? How are we doing? So the problem with this, which should be obvious to folks who are still awake after the daddies just yelled at each other, is that if you have just one satellite in LEO, it's only overhead and visible to you for a very brief period of time, because then it's going to be flying around the Earth.
A blip, sure.
So you need many. And this is what makes these LEO constellations work, is you need to put up many, many satellites so that you always have coverage.
If you look at Starlink's website right now, they have 7,086 satellites, and of that, 7,052 are operational.
Yes, but the FCC has already granted them permission for 12,000 satellites.
That's crazy.
They filed paperwork with an international regulator for up to 30,000 additional spacecraft. You are talking about tens of thousands. Now, this necessitates a couple things. One, you got to be able to build them inexpensively because they have a relatively short lifespan. You're talking about on the order of about 5 years.
Yeah, 5 to 10 years.
Because you got to amortize over that time period. Two, you got to be able to lift the shit cheap. You got to get it into space as inexpensively as possible. I don't know current numbers, but I'm pretty sure SpaceX is still leading the charge in cost per kilogram to get it into space.
Yeah.
When you've got a relatively cheap cost to put these things into space, now this starts to become attractive because you can put this stuff up a lot easier. Of course, people having more dependency on the internet helps too, because then you have more customer base.
Sure.
Starlink first put their bird up in, I think, late 2019. Mm-hmm. So they've only been at it for about 5 years, give or take. And that's not even 5 years of taking customers. That's 5 years of just being in an orbital operation.
Sure.
And they've already got, I think, more than 5 million subscribers worldwide.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Which is pretty impressive, right? That's a lot of users. You're talking about rough numbers, $500 to $600 for the equipment. And then anywhere from $50 to $160 US a month, depending on your package and if you want roaming and whatnot.
How big do you think those satellites are?
There was a V2 Mini, which was sort of the gateway drug to the V2. The V2 is what I believe the vast majority of the deployments are. They're not small. They're like 1,700 pounds each. They're big fuckers. Something like 3x the weight of the OG ones that were like 500 pounds.
They're putting up V3s right now for Starlink.
With the V3s being around 1,900 kilos. So that's like roughly the size of a
car,
of a large SUV. They're not small. In theory, you're getting somewhere in the neighborhood of a terabyte per second of throughput through that bird, which is pretty damn impressive.
Depending about how much traffic you're pushing, yes.
Yeah, that's what's super interesting. And that's why I still think like you want a terrestrial primary. You want your primary to be terrestrial. I think about this like with cell phones.
Yeah.
There's been a big push over the past couple of years to enable SOS messaging on mobile devices. I think that's super smart.
Which is fantastic.
As a guy who goes out into the middle of nowhere and carries a satellite-based pager.
Have you tested this on your phone to see if you can go outside and connect with a satellite?
I have, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
If it can't get onto your mobile network operator, your MNO, it will automatically search for for, and if it can lock onto the satellite network operator, it will. I think it's brilliant, right? As an SOS or
mind-blowing.
Like an SOS Plus, I think that's lovely. I have the same concern that I have for staying at a hotel. It's when I'm in the middle of nowhere and I'm trying to figure out how exactly to get the rattlesnake venom out of my kid's leg, and some asshole is streaming
The Office, sure.
And I'm like, God damn it, can you please just fucking pause Netflix so I can get this? Like, that's what's going to ruin it for everybody, are these huge bandwidth consumptions. But I think it's a secondary provider, and I do see, I'm jumping around here a little bit, but I do see a world where in short order, you're going to pay an extra 20, 30, 40 bucks a month on your phone to have 50 gig of internet access via satellite per month. And that makes a hell of a lot of sense to me.
So if you're outside for some reason and you don't have a connection, suddenly you do have a connection.
Totally.
Not just when you're camping, but I mean, like, if you're someplace that just has bad connectivity, you suddenly have connectivity from the satellite.
But back to the sort of why these deployments work, you're in LEO, right? So what Jeff was just talking about, you've got to put a lot of these up, right? Tens of thousands of these. That's just SpaceX. You've got a couple other providers that are doing a similar scale, Amazon being one of them. So you've got a lot of birds flying around at different altitudes trying to provide similar service.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a cool thing about the way Amazon's Kuiper is. It's 3 layers. It's 3 different layers of these satellites.
Which is interesting design choice.
590 kilometers, and it's 610 kilometers, and it's 630 kilometers. They're going to have 3 levels.
Layer cake, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But this brings up a whole other set of problems about these, which is like collisions. And as we talked about on our space debris episode, you get a couple of these slammed into each other, and then you just get more collisions. And then more collisions means more shit, and then more shit.
And then you have nothing in LEO.
And then you have no internet, right? And that's part of what concerns me is like, if somebody crashes into a telephone pole by your house and takes out your internet, it's extremely unlikely it's going to affect me, 10 miles away. It's very unlikely. It could, you could be some main artery, but usually we have rings. We've got the ability to get traffic through those dependency points.
Sure.
You don't have that with satellite, right? If you take out one of those layers, you're kind of effed. I mean, maybe I don't know enough about
that layer's gone.
Orbital mechanics. Maybe with Kuiper, because there's 10 kilometers or so between those layers, if you've got an explosion of a debris field in one, you just take out that field and you're far enough away that it doesn't reach the other ones. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. You're still going to have a tremendous amount of loss. And how many of those events can you have until the shit's all gone? It's all just a bunch of garbage flying around.
Right.
And by the way, it's really hard to get that down. You can't just take a giant net on a fucking giant pool skimmer and put it up out of Texas and just hope you grab all this stuff. Like, it doesn't work.
Rockets by Bissell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Dyson, the one that never loses suction. So the scale on this is really interesting, and it's really massive. The point of, I think, what we wanted to discuss here, though, is that it's not just SpaceX that's doing it. SpaceX has had, I wouldn't say they were early. They were one of the first, but they've had a lot of success.
At that scale, they are the
first. That scale.
Yeah.
But you've got OneWeb. So OneWeb has a very interesting history. They've been around for quite some time. They launched their first 6 satellites in 2019. They then ran into bankruptcy in 2020. They've raised a whole ton of money. I mean, they've got billions of dollars raised into this thing, but then they've hit multiple snags. Some that I think were just the nature of the business, some that were just bad timing. Like, for example, they launched many of their birds out of Russia. And in March of 2022, they had a scheduled launch, a batch of 36 satellites that were supposed to go up to help complete their constellation. And there was calls for them to not do that because they didn't, Russia, this is right when Russia invaded Ukraine. The Russians said, all right, well, we'll still do it. You already paid for it, but the UK government has to get rid of their stake in OneWeb. And the UK government was like, no, we put money into this. We think this is important.
Right.
It was a stalemate.
It's a UK-based company.
It's a UK, well, yeah. I mean, the UK government owned, at that time, a pretty significant stake in the business. So the government actually owned a chunk of it, right? More so than just a UK company. Long story short, that is not something you can recover from quickly. They tried to get their assets back. They tried to just get the satellites back, and Russia was like, get fucked.
Yeah.
Those are sitting in someone's garage somewhere in Russia on whatever ebay.ru because they never got them back.
They're taking them apart so Russia can figure out how to make their own constellation.
Yeah, exactly. Which they've also talked about doing. Interestingly, they did get their insurance payout on that, which I thought was something. It still doesn't help you.
Yeah.
It was like $50 million. I don't know what their actual cost of development was. I'm sure they took a bigger hit than $50 million from the business.
Of course.
They've gotten their constellation up. They're not targeting consumer level access, right? Their OneWeb's target has been businesses, governments, defense, phone network operators, stuff like that.
Maritime. Marine's huge.
Yeah, maritime for sure. So that's interesting to me, right? That there is another constellation up there that's been deployed.
Yeah.
This is an interesting aside that I think you will appreciate, and I think most of our listeners will too. This wasn't widely known. So on December 31st of 2024, so just a couple months ago, the OneWeb constellation had a 48-hour service outage, and it was due not to satellite problems. It was a ground equipment software that was maintained by Hughes Network Systems, and it failed. They failed to accommodate the extra day of the 2024 leap year. How in the flying fuck are you still having this problem in 2024?
Anybody who's ever worked on video knows about 30 frame drop, which keeps you in sync with leap year.
Oh, by the way, they only got 80% of this fleet back on January 1st, and it took them until January 2nd to get the rest back.
OneWeb has about 660 satellites. Is that right?
Yeah, OneWeb has deployed about 660 satellites. About 630 of them are currently operational. Something like that.
It's like the buoys in the ocean. You have two numbers. You have the number of buoys in the ocean and you have the number of operational buoys in the ocean.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, that's our old number. But OneWeb's super interesting. They're still about an order of magnitude behind Starlink in terms of scale, but they have a deployed constellation that works.
System. It actually
pretty
works.
Cool.
Right. 150 megabytes per second.
I'm pretty confident also that Amazon is going to succeed with their Project Kuiper. I'm pretty sure that.
Of course they are.
Well, I'll tell you where I'm a little hesitant is part of their grant from the FCC is that they've got to have half of their fleet deployed by the end of July 2026. That's a year away.
Which they will. You watch. Obviously, launch windows are a challenge.
That's the thing, right? I mean, you're not leaving a lot of room for error. They've bought commitments for like 90 plus some launches, which is great. Yeah. Some of those, ironically, are on SpaceX equipment, right? Which OneWeb did too.
They're launching on everything.
But I also think is interesting, especially given if you're SpaceX and you're launching your competition's satellites, and they're at risk of losing their license. I don't know. Maybe that rocket doesn't take off for that one. You just like
you drag your feet.
Whatever. We're going to forfeit the launch cost, but oopsies. So I will see.
They've contracted so much launch capability.
Totally. And also SpaceX is printing money with everything else that they do too. It's not like they're hurting for revenue from Starlink.
Yeah.
I roughly counted up what I could find that was scheduled. And this is for Project Kuiper. And they've already got 2 birds flying. They've got another 104 that are scheduled for this year, 2025, and then 80 in 2026. So round numbers, that gets you close to 200, but their halfway point is like 1,600 birds.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're not going to schedule more. I know they're going to schedule more, but you've got to be 8x what you currently have scheduled to get there. So I'm just not confident that they're going to be able to get there, but I don't know.
They're going up on Vulcans. They're going up on Blue Origins. They're going up on everything. I mean, they're going up on everything.
I'm just saying maybe to hit this goal, maybe you put a couple more satellites up as opposed to Katy Perry. I'm just thinking maybe that would have been the better way. You should swap it out with some parts. And
I hadn't thought that those things were interchangeable, but
I'm confident
sure.
they're going to get there. So that's going to give you at least a couple providers.
Yeah.
Russia supposedly is working on a constellation of somewhere between 200 and 600 satellites.
Yeah.
The last thing I had read was possibly targeting 160. It's unclear. They did put a demonstrator up in October of 2022. I could not find a lot of information on this, but they have talked about putting up their own constellation.
Telsat is talking about putting up one. Lightspeed, the Canadian satellite operator. It's putting up 198 LEO satellites. There's the same kind of thing.
So once you get those costs down on launches and the tech's just getting better and smaller, this becomes super interesting. A lot of folks are going to be putting up spacecraft to do this, and I think that's really compelling. Still would like to see more wires at houses. Maybe I'm just a dinosaur, but I'd like to see not specifically copper wire, but glass fiber at houses. I really think that's the way to go. I have yet to wire up one of my houses with fiber internally, but I've been damn close, at least between closets. But I've been like, why can't I put 5 strands to my desk? I 100% could. Why am I so lazy?
The EU is also planning to put up their own LEO satellite constellation. As they should. Yeah, for defense reasons, you should have your own.
Normally I'd say you could count on us, but no, guys, I'd put your own up.
Don't count on us. The plan is to put up 170 LEO satellites. Launches between 2025 and 2027.
And if you don't want Americans to use it, just put a very basic math problem on the front, like a little CAPTCHA. Like a simple CAPTCHA. It's like prove that you're European and just have to do some basic math and we'll all just sit there and stare at it.
Can I ask a stupid question? This is really dumb.
I have stupid answers.
Kuiper got permission from the FCC to launch theirs, and they have a little limited launch window. They have to get most of their satellites up into the air. I get that. What gives the FCC permission to say, yes, you can put these things into space?
Yes. Isn't that a great question?
I mean, can I go to the FCC of Monaco and get permission to put all my satellites up in space? Can it be any country?
It's so funny you say that, because it's not the same thing. Last time I checked, we're roundly speaking 250, 300 years old as a country. And we were literally founded off a boat.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody came over here on a boat. Our restrictions on the sea
12 miles
end at around miles. 15 miles, 12 miles. It just ends. It just ends. We have no jurisdiction past that. But then, because we were the second into space, not even the first, we were the second to space, we're like, oh yeah, no, we own all that. That's all ours.
How do we get to say? What arrogance that we get to make that choice.
But it's also amusing to me because it's, you get to a certain altitude. Like, I can understand how a country would say, we don't want you flying over our country. Russia, for example, could say, we don't want you flying over our country.
But at a certain level, we're all flying over each other's countries.
But at a certain level, you have to. Like, how else do you orbit?
You can't.
Right? It's not like you could just be like, go around Russia. Like orbital mechanics don't work that way. I mean, I guess you could have an orbit that's on a plane that goes around Russia, but then you're just missing half the planet.
Right.
Like, it doesn't really work that way. And I'm kind of fascinated by that.
There is the International Telecommunications Union, which is a United Nations body that specializes in.
Yes.
And basically, it's like, don't tread on other people's radio frequencies. And they really have nothing enforceable. It's not like they have an army who can go beat you up if you violate their rules.
But you kind of need to agree as a civilization. We need to agree to like some level. Like, okay, you've got some rights vertically in the positive and negative direction. And then past that, it's the civilizations, not yours.
Yeah, sure.
You can't treat your country like a non-uniform shaped lightsaber that goes forever into space, because then when it sweeps by Mars, you can't be like, oh, we own this strip of Mars now that we just swept by. It doesn't fucking work that way. That's not going to be effective.
Yeah.
And now that you've got demonstratable satellites that can destruct other satellites and take them over, you could just be like, oh, I'm sorry, you just flew your cute little CubeSat whatever SpaceX bullshit over my country, China. I'm going to just take it apart and blow it up. And I got the right to do that.
I got another question, which is, how much does weather affect your ability to use satellite internet?
A non-zero amount, that's for sure, because you're still talking about radio waves.
I could have come up with that answer. I was looking for something a little better.
A little more specific?
Maybe.
I mean, you're going to get attenuation, certainly. I think if you're in, like, just same as with terrestrial radio, and I'm sorry, two-way terrestrial radio, not the shit that you get on Mount Wilson where they blast at 10,000 watts and it just goes through everything.
Right.
Whenever you've got sort of moderate or greater rain or snowfall, you're going to get service dropouts, right? I mean, like your, maybe DBS is a good example. When you had DirecTV or whatever, if you had a good amount of snow, you can't get the signal through that. It's still water. Yeah. Still a whole bunch of water that's funny shaped.
I still have DirecTV and it's a certain amount of rain.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. Rain or snow. And again, it's a hard comparison for me in some ways because I go, well, my wired connection won't go out during the weather, which is true. However, some asshole may sneeze on a Spectrum B box that's a quarter of a block away, and then I'm down for 3 days until Spectrum figures out how to put a new one in. So it's not that you still have certainly service issues. They're not as directly weather dependent.
Right.
They don't have a tendency to flood. They don't get hit by lightning. Like they're usually going to be okay. It's more like wind. I think wind, tree branches falling on poles, that's bad. People cutting wires accidentally with backhoes, like that's the kind of stuff that you see. And I think those are far less often than rain, even in Southern California where it never rains.
My internet goes out all the time because people are doing construction on every block here.
Yeah.
And that, for whatever reason, knocks my internet out all the time.
Okay, so here's what's nuts about these, though, talking about some advantages of them being the LEO internet constellations. You're generally speaking going to be relatively low latent. SpaceX has published some numbers on this. It hasn't really been studied super well that I know of, but they've been working on pushing that number down. Their goal is to get to 20 milliseconds of median latency with minimal packet loss. They're already around 33 milliseconds, which I think is great. I mean, that really is fantastic.
I think 25 has been seen in the wild. I mean, they're close.
But that's 33 during peak usage, not just like 3 a.m, no one's on, but the Pornhub guys. That's during peak usage, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Their worst case peak usage they reported, so this is the 99th percentile, so sort of not all of the bad, but pretty much all of the bad. Their worst case is 150 milliseconds, which is still usable.
Still great.
Right? That's not going to be the best experience, but it still works. 150 milliseconds is way better than no traffic.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed by that. Outside the US, they've seen median latency reduced by about 25%, which is also pretty great. So I'm impressed with what they're doing there. And that's a very interesting, novel problem. There's not a lot of folks that have solved that particular problem set. So they're doing some pretty cool science and engineering to get there. Other good news on this impressed me. So in some cases, you can go intercontinental via these LEO sats faster than an undersea cable, fiber optic link.
Explain that to me. How fast am I going?
If you're on fiber optics, you're going
let's back up. Yeah, I was just going to say, the undersea cable is going at about
2/3 the speed of light.
Two-thirds the speed of light. Okay.
Roughly speaking.
Your cable goes faster than mine.
200,000 kilometers per second. Okay. Yeah, I have the turbo button pushed in. Little LEDs on.
2/3 the speed of light.
Yes.
How fast is the actual transfer of data going in the mesh satellite low orbiting network?
You've got almost the speed of light transmission because it's a radio wave, right? You've got a little bit of atmospheric interference, but I think you're going to be talking about like single digit percentage points of difference. So basically the speed of light up to the bird and then down from the bird. This is assuming that you don't have to talk to another satellite. If you have to talk to another satellite, then you've got a laser trained on it. That's going to be the speed of light basically in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You're going to be closer to the speed of light for that round trip, and you're only adding, roughly speaking, 1,000 kilometers because you've got to go up and back down. That's relatively short. So I think that the point here is that the difference in length, where you've got to go up and then back down, is offset by the fact that you can go closer to the speed of light than the 2/3 in a fiber optic cable.
Depending upon how many satellites you're hitting. Because
Yes.
every time you hit a satellite, you're being switched. And that costs you time.
Now, this is not, to my knowledge, this is not the way most of these constellation providers work. You're going up to a bird and then you're coming back down at the closest ground point to the bird, not where the traffic is destined.
Yeah.
My understanding is that you're trying to keep your in-space traffic
to a minimum.
congestion to a minimum. So you want to get it back down as soon as you can and then rely on the public switched internet for your transit from there. They could certainly change that. There's no reason they couldn't put routing algorithms in these things. And maybe they have. I just haven't seen any reports on this that they've done it, but I could see that in the future. Your limiting factor is still going to be bandwidth.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem is those cables, you can saturate with a hell of a lot more bandwidth than you can on satellites. So maybe for some subset of people that actually benefit from shaving off a couple milliseconds, those would be like high frequency traders,
Sure.
maybe gamers, like professional competitive gamers might benefit from single digit milliseconds. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but they could. I don't know who else benefits from such small latency reductions. I'm impressed that there is a potential world here where you can have less latency going up to a bird and coming back down than a cable point to point. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's some of the good news. You have bad news, pollution. You've got many forms of pollution. The one that I think a lot of folks are familiar with and talk about is light pollution.
Yeah.
And if you have seen these trains, especially after they're deployed, these train of satellites, my first thought is, wow, that's really cool. Very shortly after I finish that thought, my second thought is, oh, that's fucking terrible. We've ruined the night sky.
Wait till everybody gets theirs up.
Yes,
right now
exactly.
Starlink is up. Imagine when all of these people are up at 15,000 satellites per.
Yeah. Anybody trying to do night photography of the sky or analysis invisible light of the sky, this is a real problem, right? You now have streaks in your photos. I also think, somewhat importantly, you've changed the night sky, which is something we haven't done really in our civilization at all. Yes, you have light pollution from a city, but it's all terrestrial based. You've now marred that night sky. And because I like to go out into the middle of nowhere where I'm hundreds of miles away from any sort of light source, it's really gorgeous to be able to see things like the Milky Way with your naked eye. I think that's really cool. And you get enough of these up there that could harm that, which is, I think has a real effect on us as people. We'll see. Maybe it's not the most important thing.
But you'll all be able to stream The Office from every corner of the globe, no matter how remote you are.
You'll be able to watch a video of a rendering of the night sky, which will be great. You'll be able to stream a video of a rendering of the night sky.
You know, you have enough of these satellites. You have an array. You could probably have them light up what would be sort of behind them.
Oh my God. This is basically like a super expensive version of like a WS2815 LED array.
Yeah, it's a big screen. It's
make
a big
them all
curved
blue.
screen.
Uncle Elon, make them all blue. And they all fucking turn blue. Make them all red. It turns them all red. That would be great. I'd sign up for that.
What about Coca-Cola ad?
Yeah, there you go. There's your.
It's a drone
that's where it's
show.
coming. Yep, exactly. Like the ones that fly through the sky and they change the letters as they fly.
All right, we have to get out of here real quickly. Before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Yeah, okay, switching gears from satellites to something a little more rooted on Earth. I watched earlier this week on Monday night, Game 1 of the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers series, which, by the way, I was invited to and I didn't go, and I'm now regretting that.
Sure.
At one point, the Kings were up 4-0 late in the second period. The game was pretty much over. I almost turned it off. Good thing I did not.
Okay.
The Oilers fought back. They were within 2 goals midway through the third. Like, it wasn't looking great for them, but they had definitely fought back. It was 5-3. And then the unthinkable happened. In a span of 36 seconds, with an empty net on both goals, they scored twice while their goaltender was pulled, which was nuts. Now it's tied. And you're like, fuck, if the Kings can make it to overtime, that's going to be a win. Like, because now the momentum has swung. And then with 33 seconds left, will look to be a broken play. The Kings get the worst, softest, saddest shot of this fluttering puck. And literally, as he shot it, I said out loud, oh, that's not going to do it, guys. And the puck just like lobbed up and went over the goaltender's shoulder into the net. And it was a goal. And it was incredible. I mean, that's awesome. Look, I'm a Kings fan second. I'm a Wings fan first.
I get it.
I get really excited for the Wings. But it was such an exciting moment because hockey really is, I think, the greatest sport, especially in playoffs, that I literally yelled. And I'm like, I'm sure all my neighbors woke up because I was so excited to see that.
Sure.
I have not yelled that loud since the Dodgers pulled off the 5-0 comeback against the Yankees last year.
Sure.
So it was super exciting. It was really fun to watch. So first round of NHL is the best.
Also fun to watch a hockey puck going not only X and Y, but also going to Z.
Yes, there are. It turns out 3 dimensions. It is nuts, though, when you see a pass that's fluttering like that, because it's so hard to do anything with that. And this dude had, in the interview afterwards, he even said, I was like, I got 100% of that thing. Well, he was saying it, making fun of himself. It was this terrible shot, and I have no idea how it went in. It was really fantastic.
Love those moments.
Yeah, it was fun. How about you?
When the Lakers are in the postseason overlapping the beginning of the Dodgers season, forget about it. I'm only watching sports too. So sorry if you are not interested in sports, and we're talking about hockey and now basketball and that other one we do where we hit the thing with a bat. This is the last season of the NBA on TNT.
Yeah.
But Inside the NBA, featuring Ernie Johnson, Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, will continue on ABC, ESPN. And I mention that because I recommend you watch as each team gets knocked out as they're celebrated on the show as they go fishing. It's a long-standing tradition and it's great fun.
Do they take the whole team out, take them fishing?
No, somebody mocks up a picture at the end of the show of that team, and they're all on a boat and they're fishing, and it's very sweet. It's a lot of fun.
In hockey, it's all golfing. They're just they'll be golfing in no time.
Same idea.
That's awesome.
That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for All This Nonsense, a truly terrible podcast from our awful company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm CJ Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, my favorite Overcast, or wherever you may get your podcasts from.
Nonsense uses 7-Zip, a free and open source file archiver, a zipper that, like other zippers, places groups of files within compressed containers known as archives. However, unlike other zippers, 7Zs can be completely secure. Available on every modern and not so modern platform, 7Z makes archiving and sharing files as easy as pie. Check it out.
We'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us.
Do you like pie?
Blueberry pie?
I love pie.
I love me some pie.
That's good. All right, let's go have some pie.
Apple pie? Top 3 pies. Top 3 pies. Go.
Blueberry, and blueberry.
Come on. Pick 2 more.
Are there other pies? Peach. Oh.
Peach pie? Ooh, wow.
Peach pie.
Isn't that a peach cobbler? Is there a peach pie?
There are cobblers and there are pies and there are crumbles. Don't confuse the 3.
I already have. Blueberry? Wait.
Blueberry, peach.
No. Blueberry's off my list. Coconut cream, banana cream, apple.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Chocolate pudding pie.
I'm not even coming over.